Hi, this is Evelyn of the Modern Needle, and it is finally done. The Tetris mitered blanket, and as you can see, it's quite beautiful. It's not huge, it just needs to cover me while I'm sitting in my chair knitting. And all of the squares are knitted in, they're all different sizes. And it just works together so beautifully. It's not complicated, not fussy, but it keeps you busy. And let's go on to the next bit. Now I'm at the point where I wanted to show you what happens when you box yourself in, which means you have 1, 2, 3 sides. So again, as if before, you can either sew in the one side or you can knit it in, which is probably always my preferred method. So we'll start on here. This is my first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is hiding back here, 11, and I'm going to use this guy here as my 12th stitch. Rock it a little bit. Right, put them right here so I don't lose them. And now I'm going to pick up 12 stitches on this side, which I'm only going to pick up 11 out of here, and the 12th one comes out of here. So instead of going into this, well, let me count the knots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Correct. Okay. So I'm going to skip this first one here. And 1, snug up the needle because we actually skipped one of them. 2, okay. 2, 3. And this is actually my preferred way to pick up the stitch out of the wrap or the knot, because I don't need a smaller needle or anything. I probably should have used a bamboo needle to pick them up because they're a little bit more grippy. Okay. Yep, that works a bit better. Just going to push this ahead here. And I'll switch the needles in a second. Hope it's not too distracting. As I counted my knots, I know that this here is number 11. And let me actually move them onto this needle here. That just because the yarn is very smooth, and I'm actually working behind the camera, so my angle is a little bit off and the needle is just a bit too smooth. The stitches like to slip off as fast as I knit them or want to pull them on. So there we go. This is a 5. Yep. Okay, so now I'm right here. I picked up wall number 1, I picked up wall number 2, and now I'm at this one here. So normally we would pick it up out of the knot or out of the wrap. But when I was doing the border treatment, the I-cord, I try to pick them up out of the knot first because that actually looks very clean. But once you pick them up out of the knot and you have the stitch on here, it's kind of hard to see, like, is this the next knot or did I just do this knot? So it's actually a little bit less fussy, and I don't think it's fussy at all, but it is a little bit less it's a bit easier to see if you pick it up out of the bars here. And I think when I showed this on the last video too, that you can pick them up in between the bars, I said if you pick up both stitches, I don't really know what seam needs to be that strong. But sometimes when you have socks and socks get knit to negative ease, you can go in between the bars and pick up both. For what we're doing today, it doesn't actually matter if you pick up one or two. I'm just going to count the bars in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is up here. Okay. So, and here I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 stitches. And I'm going to pick up the first one out of here, which is 12. I'm going to turn my work around, slip the first stitch with a yarn end back, and just start knitting. So on these, actually, we're slipping the first and the last stitch. No, we're not. Just let me think here. Okay, knit those two together. So should I have, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, let's pull these tight here and do my first wrap. So this is still going to be the top that goes across of that of those 3 walls. And the first stitch is always a bit loose if you have a new cast on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and knit those two together before the marker. Slip the marker. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, got it. So now we're at the last 2 stitches. We're going to knit those last 2 stitches together because we are going to pick up another stitch out of the bar right here. You can use just a top, just one, or you can go through both. It actually doesn't matter. I'm going to turn the work. And we're going to slip the first stitch with a yarn in back. And we're going to knit again to the marker. I'll keep you with me for a few rows because they do get shorter anyway, so it's not like it's going to take tons of time to sort of knit this square. Just so that you can see it a few times on how this works. I suppose when I do this, you don't need to really have like such a close-up. Slip it with the yarn in back because this is the top of this line here. One stitch before the marker, we knit those two together. I split that for a second. Rock the needle, knit the next one, tighten it up. We're going to knit again to the last 2 stitches. Okay, We knit these together. Actually, I knit them through the back loop because I don't want to form a line. I knit them through the back loop, and I pick up one through the side bar, through the middle bar. We need to knit those two together before the end because we're picking up one extra stitch, and in order to keep the stitch count together, we need to knit those two together right before it. And I'll show you how clean that transition actually is. When I started on the blanket, I inserted a block, or I did on purpose box myself in, and I thought, okay, so I want to see what a clean transition is, and I just couldn't come up with anything that really looked clean on picking up that third side. But when I made the U-shift blanket from Knit Picks a few years ago for my son, I used the border treatment of the 10-stitch blanket because the miter for that blanket is actually on the wrong side for the miter blanket. How ironic is that? Because then you kind of stop over here on the outside, but when you knit the miter on the corners, and I did want to knit a miter because I had a two color where the colors were split in the miter, you actually need to finish on the inside of the blanket. And for our purposes, the miter just goes the wrong way and you can't turn it around. So I use the way that the 10 stitch blankets are knitted, because they do, sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself here. I'm at the last 2 stitches. I'm going to knit them together. Knit it and pick up 1 stitch in the middle bar. And you can see how easy it is to see that middle bar. The knots are not that easy. So I'm going to, I don't know if I said before to slip it with a yarn in the front or in the back, but we're actually slipping this purlwise with a yarn in front, just to make sure I did say it correct. Sometimes I don't. I think I said the right thing, but then when I listen back to it, I think, that's not what I meant to say. So hopefully you can stay with me even if my brain has a little blip in there. So here I am again knitting to the top of the square, which gets a knot or a wrap right here as per normal. Knit those two together through the back loop and pick up a stitch, yarn in front, slip that stitch. The reason why I want to have the yarn in the front is I don't want to have an additional wrap. So you can already see how clean this transition is on both sides, really, when it is knitted in. But I'm really happy that I figured that out. And as I interrupted myself before, the nervous knitter, who is also on YouTube, she knits her I-cord on this way. And I thought, oh, actually, let me see if this works in connecting the blocks. Because my brain always does that. Well, what if? Can I use it for something else? Like, where. Um, yeah, I always check what I can use for what. So anyways, it the nervous knitter uses that technique, and I thought, okay, so this is actually the best way that I can think of combining or inserting a block into here. Knit it through the back loop. Okay. Yep. Have to pay a bit more attention because one is slipping with the yarn in the front and one with the yarn in the back. So I always have to check what is it that I'm trying to do. Where am I? Top of the box, yarn in the back. Okay. Attaching to the box. Okay, so I'm almost at the top. Just want one. So yarn in the front. Oh, we are getting there. Oh. I think I split the yarn on there, but you can't tell that after anyways. Yarn in the front. knit two together, knit one, and knit those two together. No, I'm at the top of the box. I'll need that little tip up there. So now I'm going to take this off. I'm going to knit these two together, but I'll pick up one more stitch. So I picked up the one stitch before, now I'm just going through the second stitch. Okay, we're knitting this two together, and we're knitting these two together. Lovely yarn, but a bit slippery, and we're going to bind it off. So now I'm at the top. Okay. Now, when I clean up, and I had already cleaned up the threads. Let me pull this a little bit to make sure that everything looks fine because of the angle that I was knitting at. Okay, so here it is. It's knitted in. It looks beautiful. This is the front. This is the back. And we can start to proceed with our corner treatment, which is the I-cord going around. So I have said before that I am a quilter, and when we frame a quilt, we usually pick a darker color. So this is mainly blue. I could have used a darker blue because it signals the eye. There's an end here. If I wanted to have it all open and airy, I would use a lighter color, but typically that's not what you would use. So what I decided to use is, of course it has a knot at the front. I'm going to use a brown, light medium brown. And I'm going to go around it. Now for the I-cords for the blankets, excuse me. For the I-cords for the blankets, I actually like using a bit of a thicker I-cord, which means a regular I-cord is usually 3 stitches. But I would like to use 5 on my son's blanket. I even used a 6 so that when you hang on to the end of the blanket, you actually have something to hang on to. I mean, this is just a tiny sample, but my bigger blanket, which is finished, and you've seen it at the video in the beginning, is right here. And this is a 5-stitch I-cord. Now, I attached the I-cord from the front, but I think it looks prettier. The stitch on the back looks prettier. So I'm going to show you how to attach it to the back, and because it is a tube, it kind of curls around to the front anyways. So let's have a look on how to do this. On the blanket that I had made, I used the last stitch from what I was knitting, and I was using that color to go around it anyways. I could use that color, and I just used the last stitch as stitch number 1. But here we actually don't have the same thing because I'm using a brown. So I'm going to start with a slip knot, and this particular slip knot you can keep or not, and cast on my stitches. Actually, to stay in character, I'm going to drop off that slip knot. So I'm not going to count him. He'll just anchor these stitches here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to start from the back side here. Let me see. Yeah, that's fine. So I want to stitch from the back side. So I'm going to flip it around. And in anticipation of this, I had already cleaned up all of my threads for the rest of it. And I really hate cleaning up because each little thingy has like 2 threads. So I had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18. I hate cleaning up that many. So every time I come across any of those stitches when I was done with my blanket, I was actually done, because I clean up the threads as soon as I come across and I insert something. As soon as I cross those 2 things, I'll clean up the threads. So by the time, like I said, I'm done, I'm actually done, and I don't have to worry about I actually don't have to worry about what do I want to say? Having to clean up all of these ends. So now I'm going to the front of, I have 6 stitches, but one of them is my cast on loop that secured the stitches. I'll get rid of him. So now I have 5 stitches, and I just slide them back to the front. And on my blanket, I tried, just in case you don't have shorter needles, because it does make it easier if you have to slide it to the front instead of sliding it through the long cord. If you have interchangeable needles, just use just unscrew the tips, and then you can actually just knit with the tips because they're short enough. And sorry, this is not an interchangeable, but the needle stopped here, so I knitted with this tip, and when I slid it back to the front, this was very easy to knit it off of, so I always had a tip to knit with, but I slid it to the end just to see if I'm saying to you actually works or makes sense. As you can see, I'm not ever shy of needles ever, so I have lots. So I am going to use what I have. These are 6-inch, but I also have 5-inch, which are a little bit shorter, but I'll use the 6-inch. So I knitted, I had 6 stitches on my needle, and I dropped off the slip stitch. So now I had 5. I knit the first 3, which pulled the yarn from the last stitch right to the first. I'll knit these 2 together through the back loop. Now I only have 4 stitches, and I'm going to attach it just past a corner, or yeah, just past a corner. I'll attach it somewhere in here. I'll grab the middle bar, and here is stitch number 5. I will slide this back to the front. I will knit 3, 1, 2, 3, knit those 2 together, the last 2. Now I'm back at 4. I'll rock my needle for a minute and pick up stitch number 5 again out of here. And you actually can get some really nice speed on this. So 1, 2, 3, knit 4 and 5 together. Now I only have 4 stitches, but I'm picking up number 5 out of the bar. I'll exchange my needles, because when you have the short needles, you can just push it back. 3, knit 2 together, which is 4 and 5. Oops, sorry. Which makes it 4, and I pick up stitch number 5. So you can already see how this little tiny thing here is attaching, and I'll just knit a few more rows, and then show you the tube that it forms. So this here is my empty needle. And maybe I should have used the even shorter needle because I am behind the camera here. Always knit the last 2 together and pick up stitch number 5. And like I said, it makes no difference if you go through 1 or 2 of the stitches. On my blanket there, I grabbed whichever. I didn't really struggle with it. Whatever the needle landed in first, that's what I picked up. And here you can see how easy it is to see. So here is my wrap or my knot. So this is my next one. If you pick up the knots, it's actually not that easy to see. And knit 1, 2, 3, knit them together through the back loop. The reason why we knit them together I wonder if you caught that mistake here. I knit it back because I'm talking. I was supposed to turn my needle and slip it back to the front because I was thinking this is not a tube. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I do crack myself up sometimes. 4. And in here, my next pickup, this is the last stitch from this square. This is the bar connecting the 2 of them. So my next stitch is this one. And if you ever skip a stitch, the I-cord is elastic enough that it actually doesn't really matter. So I-cords are not super elastic, but they are elastic enough that it doesn't matter. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, knit those 2 together through the back loop. And you don't need to be quite tight. So here I picked up in the bars between the knots. Here I'm picking up the bottom of the stitch. And you can see that this is actually the first row. So I really don't want to highlight that. So I picked the bump in the back. Now you can go through both. Do you elongate this stitch? Okay, so I don't think it matters. But I do, if I pick just the front one, I do elongate these stitches, which I don't want. I want them to look like pearls. So if you pick up both, that's fine. If not, pick the back one so that the first part of this cast on looks like it belongs to the purl ridge. It doesn't, but it mimics it so that it looks pretty. I'll show you one more time. 1, 2, 3. Knit these 2 together through the back loop. And the reason why I knit them together through the back loop is I don't want it to form a ridge on this side here. I will show you on the other blanket what it looks like when you knit them together through the front. It does make a bit of a difference. When I knit them through the back loop, this second stitch here is presented first. When I knit them together, this stitch is presented first. And I want that inner stitch to disappear. I don't want to highlight that one. And I'll pick up my stitch here. And as you can see, this is the front of the blanket. And once you get going on it, it looks very pretty how it wraps around. This often is a bit of an elongated stitch or a little bit of a bigger stitch. Let me see if I can actually do it this way, you can see that this is a little bit of a bigger stitch if you compare them, because we're knitting two together and snugging them up. Now over time, this is completely going to melt in and disappear. However, this is the cleaner side, so when you knit them on and you want to have the cleaner side, you knit it on from the back. So this is what this looks like, and I'll show you the corner in 2 minutes. But let me see. Let me see what I want to show you here. Okay. In this sample here, this is my blanket. I used the last stitch out of here. I cast on 4 and I knitted 2 together. And you can see how this looks different. It almost shortens that wrapped around cord a little bit, because it'll pick up that inner stitch and push it to the top, which I don't really want. I wanted it to look like it was a tube going all the way around. And then at the end, for the corner treatment, once you get to the corner, instead of picking up knitting through that last stitch, because we're having, let me see, this is our block. We don't have an extra stitch in the middle because we have even stitches on each side. So in the last stitch on this side here, we knit twice into this and then go around the corner and knit twice. What I did on mine, there is kind of like a mock corner on here, and I will knit and then show it to you. So this is, if we were to pull out this stitch here properly, this knot is the corner, because this is the one side where the hole is right here. It's actually this guy here. And this is the other side. So when I knit to the corner, I grab this thread first, knit into this and pick up this guy, knit it again and pick up this other guy, so that actually in this corner here I have 2 stitches. Then I knitted through this knot here, 1 row, and picked up 1, and then I turned my work and knitted 1 here and knitted 1 here. So technically in this corner that only has 2 stitches, I added 3 to get a really pretty transition to go around the corner, which is this way. It actually looks very pretty. Now, I don't think I did it on the first corner because I didn't think about it, but I did it on the other corners. And again, you can't tell anyways. And because we're forming a tube here, you can see it's a tube right in here. Sorry. The tube is right in here. So technically I can push my needle in through this, and you can't actually see my needle if I do it correct. Okay. So the tube is right here, and you can't really see the needle. So if you need to hide your threads after, you can just pull them along in the tube. Now, when I came around the corner here and I do my last stitch, I actually want to extend the tube on the right hand side just a little bit, so that I can just push it inside of this tube here and pull it up, and then I clean up my threads so that the 2 tube ends, one is pushed inside the other. And then when I cleaned up my thread, I just gave it a couple of tuck stitches so that can come undone. And that's a very easy way to clean it up. Otherwise, you have to Kitchener stitch these stitches together, and maybe not everybody is familiar with that. And it is a blanket after all. Who is going to see this or know this? I mean, mine has 2 colors, and you can't really see that I shoved the tubes together. Voila. Problem solved for that one. But there was another thing that I wanted to show you before I pause this for a minute and get over to the corner. Okay, maybe it'll come to me while I'm knitting this. So I can pull this back out because I need it. And I will knit this around and see you at the end. So we're almost at the corner here. And I will knit it up to show you how to work the corner treatment and how to clean off the I-cord. So as you can see, it does not take very long to knit around. Now, granted, this is only a little guy here. And you don't need to put any extra tension onto the I-cord to make sure that it snugs up tight. Just trust that the technique of the stitches will do what they are designed to do, which pull together as a cord. So we're getting pretty close there. And I thought I will show you the difference between blocking and not blocking. Some of these yarns here are 100% acrylic, like this brown here, which is the Bernat Premium number 4. It's like a Michael's or a Walmart or somewhere there. The others are probably from a similar spot, but might or might not have up to maybe 30% wool in it. Because I do like wool blends for things like this. Oh, okay, I'm actually at the corner. You can see that I'm at the corner because this here is our middle if you follow this along. So this is my last stitch. I'm on the right hand of the corner. Here's my stitch, and I will go into this twice. And earlier I had said like go twice into the same stitch for the corner on the right and on the left, and then one time in the corner. I found that the corner was like really hard to get into, and at the end it actually didn't make a difference. So you can omit that. I think if you increase a stitch, or not a stitch, a row on each side, then your corner actually has 3 rows, and that's enough to pull it around. So I went twice into the same stitch, and now I'm going to go into the next one, which is just on the other side. Now I'm on the left side of the corner. And you can see in the middle, in a minute, you can already see here, because I did twice into the same stitch, it kind of forms a little bit of a bubble. It's almost as if it butts onto one another and wants to curl. So this was stitch number 1 into the left corner, and let's do row number 2. No, sorry, I forgot to go into this very same bar and pick up that stitch so that I have 5 again. Sometimes I do get ahead of myself and forget it, and I have to take that first stitch back. I usually notice it right away, because I don't have 5 stitches on the needle. So now I'm past the corner, and you can see that it does form the corner here. And now I'm at the last stitch before I connect the 2 cords together. You can see that this here is my first one. This is my last one. So let's have a look at how we're going to manage this. 1, 2, 3. And we're no longer picking up anything. 1, 2, knit these 2 together. I'll just do one more pass. 1, 2, 3. And now I'll just cut the yarn. I wanted to have a little bit extra of the tube to extend, so when I push it into this tube here, it won't pop back out. So I push my needles into these mini pumpkins, otherwise I lose them on the I always lose them on my work surface. So unless I stick them into something, either my wool mat, which is below this mat here, or into these little baby pumpkins, I kind of lose them. So we had established that there is a hole in the tube right here. So I'll put my needle through here. And I'll pull. Might have to jiggle a little bit with my hand. It's pulled in. Perfect. So it is pulled in. So now I'm just going to clean up this thread here. Bring it out this way. And maybe connect it up with this to make sure that the stitch looks complete. There we go. We snugged that up a little bit. Just going to pull it back in here, and I can cut it off. And now I have this bit here. Okay. So now I'm just going to tack it down. I'll go around this stitch here. And maybe go around this stitch here. Almost Kitchener. Oh. I'll pick up, go through these 2 stitches here and go behind this guy. Pick up these 2. If you can see that. Behind these 2. Actually, no. It left that bubble here, and I actually don't want that. So I pulled it back and go back in here, which means that it'll pull it over on this side and it'll clean up that elongated stitch. Go in here. Doesn't really matter, it just needs to mimic a stitch a little bit. There we go. Okay. It is a little bit thicker here because I just pulled the two tubes inside one another. However, this will ease itself out over time and it's not going to be a big thing. Again, the tube is hollow, so you can just and bring it back maybe this way. Not pulling it too tight. Okay, so technically, move my tea. This is the back side. Still have to clean up these little ends. And this here is the front side. Now, what I normally do, I'm going to show you this as well. I'm going to move this up a little bit here, if you allow me. So let me see. I do have a steamer here. I just want to see how hot it is. Not way too hot, but maybe. Because this here is partially acrylic. Still have Christmas. This here is a steamer. So I don't want to put it right on the acrylic because acrylic, as we all know, is plastic and will melt. I don't want that. But I do want to steam it. Okay. Just by running over with this steamer, look how beautiful that cleaned it up and made it all flat, and it is all ready for my teapot. There you go. I just have to clean up these two threads on the back, but otherwise it is lovely and flat and quite beautiful. There we go. This will be my little tea trivet, I guess you would call it. So I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you next time for my next project. Oh, I did want to say, all of these little bits and pieces, before I let you go, I do collect them because I make these little guys, and with part of the stuffing in this, I'll just stuff it in the head. So actually I have absolutely no waste at all, and I can use every single little bit of scrap. And then of course I have some quilt batting in here, or pillow stuffing that I put in here, and yep, good use for them. So this here is the mitered squares with the I-cord. It is the Tetris mitered squares, and I hope you learned something new. I hope you enjoyed my journey with the mitered squares, and I wish you just a fantastic day and happy knitting until we see each other next time. This is Evelyn. Bye bye for now.